I made every single mistake that I could possibly think of in my first year in insurance. Here's exactly what I did and how I fixed them. So the first thing, again, is just going through the licensing, extravaganzas, if you'd like to call it that, of getting your state exam ready to sell insurance. I did that back during COVID, which was 2020. That was a process that I actually had to do over 3-4 times until I got that passing score. The first thing, as far as the excitement of passing the licensing exam versus the reality of selling. So once I was able to go through the 4 tries that it took me to pass the state exam, I was able to actually start selling, and then boom, the understanding that everything was going to be on my own was not really crystallized just yet. And so obviously you're excited, you're starting a new job, and this is what it was for me. I was excited, I was ready to really hit the ground running, but the idea that I was going to be selling on my own had not yet dawned on me yet, right? So I started listening to my mentors here and there, but the idea of COVID made things a lot harder because shortly after I passed my test, we were closed for 3 months because of COVID. And so that in itself was one thing that I really had not dawned on me yet. I think nobody was expecting that. And I think that understanding one thing that helped me along the way is that I had come so far in the journey, it did not make sense to stop. I had already, after 4 tries of taking the test, why quit after that? Why go through all that just to quit? After the COVID, thing, I'm like, all right, we're back in the office in May. I started in March, end of May. And I'm like, okay, why quit now? Like, we're finally back in the office. Even when things get low, or, what I did not soon to come to find out, which was really low, why stop? And it seems simple, but it allowed me to kind of keep one foot in front of the other and continue to persevere, even in the exam days and even in the days of not making a consistent paycheck. And the second thing is just the grueling hours of what it took and avoiding burnout by doing so. So I mentioned that we were doing 300 to 400 calls a day. And some days I was doing that, where it was 6-7 days a week, to where when you would look at the dialing numbers or the tracker, what you would see is sometimes it would be anywhere from 2 to 3 to even 4,000 actions on a weekly basis. And that was struggling because working those amount of hours definitely takes a toll on your body. You're definitely isolated from the world. You're definitely just concentrated on one thing, and that's just making money. And especially seeing no results, that's part of the mental burden that it can lay on you. I mean, imagine in my case, at one point in December, working 80 hours back to back, probably even more, but let's just keep it conservative and say 80 hours a week, back to back to back weeks, and not having any money to show for it, right? That can start to question yourself saying, oh, well, is this really for me? Is this not for me? But at the end of the day, it's you don't know what you don't know. And I think seeing the amount of people that were having success around me just kind of kept me going until I would see something. And I think that being able to have that foundation of the long hours that I put in early on was a blessing, because as soon as I was able to attach that to a system that I knew was true, tried, and worked, then it became the blueprint for how I was able to not only scale as an insurance agent, finish as the top agent in my office, and clear over $350,000 in my first full year of insurance, but it also allowed me to emulate that onto my agents as well, where I could lay out an exact roadmap of everything that I did wrong so that they could avoid it and that they could scale their business much, much quicker. I was able to scale mine. And that actually leads me to my next point, which was the moment I realized that my work was not actually producing income. So the outreach that I was doing, and a lot of the outreach that people feel like they're doing, a lot of times you feel like it's getting you closer to a sale. But at the end of the day, if you're working all these hours and you're seeing people that are working less than you, making more than you, that means there has to be a more efficient way to run your business. Simple as that. Whether your agency knows about it or not, it's up to you at that point to decide, how am I going to make my business more efficient to make sure that I am the next, whether you want to call it innovator within my business or whether you want to call it the savant, whatever term that you want to use, how can I maximize reaching out to as many leads as I possibly can, increasing my close rate and having the right mentorship around me to where now when I'm coming in, I'm doing 3 hours of prospecting, instead of reaching out to 300, I'm reaching out to 3,000 people. That is going to be the biggest difference maker of whether you're actually working or whether you're putting in work to actually get you closer to the goals that you've set for yourself. And for me, I've had 2 mentors that I credit a lot of my success to. And they were actually polar opposites. Both had cleared over 6 figures, multiple 6 figures when I started. And I was thankful to have them as what they were. One was more of an analytical guy, so he would break down a lot of the numbers of what I was doing well, what I was not doing well, why I wasn't closing deals, or maybe the times that I was, what I was doing well. And then I had another guy who was more of the, instilling self-belief in you. He was more of the motivational guy. And he did that amongst his entire team. And I was the one that took it and ran with it the most. Right. So I would say finding a mentor, someone that has been through the trials and tribulations, is just going to save you so much more time. I mean, if you can try and do this alone, and I don't doubt that you can be successful, but you can do it a lot more efficient by asking the right people in your industry, people that have cleared multiple six figures before, and what they had done to get to that point. And if you are working at an agency where people are not willing to disclose that information, one, in my personal opinion, probably shouldn't be working at that agency. But more specifically, two, go find someone that will. Because for those of you guys that are not aware, there's a thing called override in the insurance business, where any of the agents that come on board and they write business underneath you, your upline will profit off of. So if your mentors are not your upline and they are not where they need to be, then I would put it in my best interest to go find those mentors. And then the last thing here I'll talk to you guys about is just the first time that I felt like I was truly in control of my income. And for me, it was different because I had, like I mentioned, I put the system in place, and I had 2021 became the top agent on my team after starting in 2020 during COVID. And working those 6 months of just up and down is what I would say, inconsistencies. And starting to apply that into year 2021, and understanding that no one was going to outwork me, because if I had a system that was generating me multiple appointments a day, 8, 10, 12 appointments a day, I could work as much as I want. I have an unlimited, ceiling to how many deals that I could possibly close and how much money that I could potentially make. But that's not actually where I felt like I was in control of my income, because at that point, I was still working for the commission check. And it wasn't until the year 2 and year 3 kicked in, where not only was I getting renewals at that point, but I was also getting some of the company bonuses, where the true residual income of insurance started to compound, where I was able to not only clear 100,000 in commissions, but now I'm also doing 100,000 residually, 200,000 residually, where now even if, right, and this was still rare by this point, but even if I was to make a check that was, maybe 2,000, 1,000, which was less than my weekly average at that time, I'm still getting over $10,000 a month in residual income that's helping me combat that. And so I always have mentioned as far as my stories, I like to say that if I'm able to go through everything that I persevere through in the insurance business, that any agent can come in, follow a blueprint, and become successful. But at the end of the day, it all starts with the right system. And I should be, if anybody should, be living proof to you guys that mistakes are survivable. You can make mistakes and still make 100,000, 200,000 in the insurance business, as long as you have the right system. And that starts with mentorship, leads, as well as a consistent work ethic. If you guys like videos like this, again, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what's your biggest bottleneck right now in the insurance industry, and I will be sure to respond. Again, guys, until next time, take care.